Hello, my name is Karen Evans and I write for Family Tree magazine, focusing on using DNA to research our ancestors. Today I'm talking about the benefits of taking a DNA test. There are four main reasons why you might want to take a DNA test. You could use it to validate your paper research on the tree you've already created. Maybe you've got an illegitimacy brick wall somewhere on that tree and you can't get past it. Perhaps you're interested in connecting with relatives on branches of your tree, people maybe that you've lost contact with or people that you've never known. Or maybe there's a lack of evidence which is stopping you getting any further in your tree, and that might include people who are adopted, for example. I'm going to discuss each of those areas in a little bit more detail. So here's my mum's paternal timbral side, and as you can see from my tree, I've got everyone in over several generations. So I've been able to find grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents of Sydney Timbrel. But is the information that I've got on this tree correct? I've used birth, marriage and death certificates, censuses, wills and other documentation to validate this tree. But we all know that if we've been doing our family history for a little while, that sometimes our ancestors do have a tendency of diverting from the truth. Maybe they've taken a few years off their birth in a census. They've said they've come from a different area. They've changed their names. They haven't got married when they said they had. Perhaps the information given on the records is wrong at a genetic level. Is the father on the birth certificate really the genetic father? And this is where DNA testing really comes to the fore. The matches that you find on your DNA test are going to be related to you in some way. The more DNA they share with you, the closer they're related. If you use these matches and you're able to work out how they fit into your tree, it also means you begin to validate those different branches. A second cousin on one line proves that the people you thought were parents and grandparents are correct. And this can be moved further and further back for about 5 generations. So DNA really does help validate those branches of the tree. As you can see, however, sometimes your tree is not quite as complete. Here is my dad's side of the tree, and as you can see, there are several branches missing. My dad's dad, my granddad, Thomas Upton, was illegitimate. I have his birth certificate to prove it. There is no clue on who his father could be. And then if you look at my dad's mother, Dora Meadows, her mother, Emma Bevans, was illegitimate, and even more frustrating, Emma Bevans' mother, Maria Bevans, was also illegitimate. So DNA was probably going to be the only way that I could find who these missing fathers was. There were no documentation on who Thomas Upton's father was, Emma Bevans' father was, or Maria Bevans' father was. I'd like to tell you that I've been able to solve all of these with DNA. Not quite yet, but I do know who Thomas Upton's father was, for definite, and I've got a very good clue, based on the DNA matches, on Emma Bevans' father and Maria Bevans' father. My tree is beginning to grow those branches, thanks to DNA. Sometimes, though, it's not the fact that you haven't got anyone on the tree. You're pretty sure that the people on your tree are the right ones, but you can't prove it. Perhaps there's a lack of evidence, a marriage certificate or a birth certificate, which doesn't allow you to prove that that couple were the parents of a particular ancestor, or the birth certificate doesn't give you the mother's maiden name, particularly if you've got a common surname. You're stuck. Some of the evidence is coming across through documentation, but you can't be absolutely proven sure that that is the correct tree. You might even be someone in a position where you've been adopted, so lack of evidence starts pretty much from the ground up. You can use those documentations that you've been able to find, but you can also use DNA and the DNA matches that you're going to find, which hopefully are going to fill in those tree branches as you go along. By the documentation, by the matches, you're able to build together and validate and find matches and move on. One of the unexpected benefits of taking a DNA test is connecting with those relatives, with those matches, and being given more of the background information that you wouldn't possibly be able to get otherwise. My family in particular were pretty poor at collecting things like photographs or having any special personal things like letters and Bibles. But I've been able to collect some of these ephemera from other connected match relatives. So here's some of the things that I've been able to find. The lady in the middle was a DNA match who sadly since passed on, and she was born in the late 1920s. She gave me lots of information about what her life was like over in the US, and I was able to find out those names on the tree were no longer just names on the tree. They were living, breathing men and women with lives, excitement, stories, and all the things that I couldn't possibly imagine without her telling me about them. I've been able to see letters and Bibles and other ephemera from those matching relatives. The gentleman in green on the bottom is a second cousin of my granddad, and he looks so much like my granddad. It's amazing. And seeing those pictures that have been passed to me to look at has been fantastic. And the gentleman on the right in the car, well, that is Grandad Upton's real father, sent to me as a photograph by another ancestor of a sibling of that side of the tree. It was absolutely amazing. Did he look very much like that gentleman? He very much did. It was great to see those pictures and able to put faces to names and light those tree parts up, giving them like a bulb moment that made them real. Maybe you're just curious about DNA testing. There are 3 kinds of tests. There's the mtDNA testing or the mitochondrial test. And you can see from the picture at the top right, anyone can take this, but it follows your maternal line. That means you're able to go back up to thousands of years on your maternal line. So if you're interested in the deep ancestry of your maternal family, this is the test to go for. It can only be taken on family tree DNA. But perhaps you're interested in your patrilineal line or your direct male line. Then the Y-DNA test is for you. Only men can take the Y-DNA test because they're the only ones who carry the Y chromosome. And this will also take you back thousands of years. If you're interested in your direct male line, or perhaps if you've got an illegitimate break in your direct male line, this can be the test taken to maybe jump through that particular hoop. As I said, you can go back thousands of years. Not quite so many people take this as some of the other tests, but it can be very useful for deep ancestry. By far the most popular test is the autosomal test, which you can take, and that is accurate for about 5 generations. Anyone can take that, male or female, and there are the 5 companies that allow you to do so. MyHeritage DNA, Family Tree DNA, 23, and me, Living DNA, and Ancestry. This is by far the most popular test and the one where you're likely to get the most matches. If you do decide to take a DNA test, there are 5 major companies that you can see on the screen. I've put them in order of their database size. In other words, how many people will have taken a DNA test with that company that you have a potential to match with. You can see the type of test that you need to do. A saliva sample is basically spitting into a tube, and then a cheek swab is almost like brushing the inside of your cheek. Then there's the costs. Obviously, there's the cost of the test, but there's also then any other costs incurred on using that DNA test, either with its tools or on the site to look at other records. The important thing there is accepting uploads. In other words, some of these companies, the ones with yes next to them, allow you to test at another company and then upload your results to them. In other words, you don't have to test at MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA on an autosomal test. You can simply test at Ancestry or 23andMe and then move those results across, thus saving you some money. A great tool. Maybe I've piqued your interest on why you might want to take a DNA test. And obviously I've only scratched the surface. There is so much you could find out. If you want to know more, look out for blogs and videos by the people below: Blaine Bettinger, Michelle Leonard, Debbie Kennett, Johnny Pearl and Leah Larkin. They're experts in their fields and there's a lot of information out there. If you're more of a reader to find out information, all of the major test sites have a website, and there are also some amazing pieces of information on places like GEDmatch, DNA Painter, or the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, which has got almost like a web pages for all of the different types of tests and so much more. So, perhaps I've piqued your interest in a DNA test. I do hope so. Thank you so much for listening to my Why Should I Do a DNA Test by Karen Evans. You can see my email there if you'd like to write to me at Family Tree Magazine with a question or query about DNA testing. Hope to see you on a match list in the future. Goodbye.